before we start, just wanted to say how wonderful it is that Viv and I feel that we've got our 3 daughters in the audience for the first time for years, and 2 son-in-laws as well, and an old friend from the UK, so that's wonderful for us. Well, here we are at the feast, except we're not at the feast anymore. The feast finished last night. Somebody asked me what the Feast of Tabernacles was all about. No names, Jeff, but we started to answer that question, but we never really got to the finish of it. However, we're not at the feast anymore. Today is a totally different feast. As you well know, it's called the Last Great Day. There's good news in this message. There are only 2 scriptures. One's 54 chapters long, the other one's just a bit longer. Anyway, let's turn over to Leviticus 23, nothing that you don't know and you haven't seen before. Leviticus 23. There we are, Leviticus 23 and verse 36. I'm going to have to pick this up. There we are. So it says, in verse 34, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles, for 7 days to the Lord." Now that finished last night, as we know. "On the first day shall be a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. 7 days you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Eternal. On the 8th day," which is today, starting last night, "shall be a holy convocation unto you. You shall offer an offering made by fire." These, in verse 37, "these are the feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations." And that's what we do as a group of people. So that was the first scripture. Now I'd like to go to John chapter 7. Well, that's a miracle. I got straight to it. That's unbelievable. Verse 37, which is over the page. Now, Jesus keeping the feast. And it says here, in the last day, that great day of the feast, which is the 8th day, this is the last great day, Jesus stood up and cried, saying, "If any man thirst, let him come to me and drink. He that believes on me, as the scripture has said," now mark this, "out of his belly," not Christ's belly, "out of his belly shall rivers of living water flow." Now, I hadn't really noticed that before, but that's a strange thing that Jesus should say that about us. Why? David said that we're fearfully and wonderfully... That's not David, my brother, that's David, the king of Israel, said that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. The title I thought would be good for this particular little speech was Reality versus Illusion. Now, do we have any physicists in the audience? I won't ask for mathematicians because I know we do. So I won't ask for mathematicians, but physicists. I was watching a program a little while ago. The guy was explaining another question for you. Are you here? Are you here? Are you really here? I wonder that actually about some of my friends. In the construction of an atom, now this is simple terms from a simple man. So I'm trying to keep this very simple. We're God made us out of atoms. Atoms are formed out of basically electrical charges, positive and negative, and they give the illusion of being solid. Yes? Is that right, Neil? In simple terms? Okay. And we know that this thing, this lectern, it seems to be solid. If you have a car accident, for instance, and you hit the screen, it seems pretty solid. But the amount of space in between the atoms is so vast, yet the way God's created us, we seem to be solid, but we really aren't when you start getting down to the micro measurements of matter. It says that, well, in effect, what we are, we seem to be solid, but actually we're constructed of this sort of matrix of positive and negative charges. That's all we are. And when you examine that, it's only energy. It's pure energy in that form. But it gives the illusion that we are solid. So that's why I ask you, are you really here? Yes, of course we're really here. But we're really made up. And it says in the Word that Jesus Christ sustains everything by the power that he has, the power of his Word. We are sustained. That energy actually holds us together all the time. Right. It's fantastic, and the more you sort of delve into that, the more miraculous it all does seem. So, we really are a shadow, you know. We are a shadow, even now. We're a shadow of things to come. That's what it talks about when it's talking about the Sabbath, okay, and the holy days. They're a shadow of things to come. We are a shadow of things to come, because we're really, really only constructed of energy sustained by God. I think you must follow that. So, okay, if we are a shadow, because really we are, we might be alive one day, gone the next. And then, you know, it happens. So, where does that leave us? So, what has that got to do with today? Now, it might come as a shock, but really I think this feast day has got nothing directly, and you might not agree with this, the Feast of Tabernacles here is really only dealing with physical, isn't it? It's dealing with 1,000 years, it's dealing with the following 100 years, it's dealing with the resurrection and the government of Jesus Christ from Jerusalem with our assistance, if we can, you know, say that. But what about this day? What does this day picture? And that's what I really want to sort of talk about with you. This day is not really about the physical. It's not really about resurrection, actually. Because the resurrections, the various resurrections, have already taken place when this day comes along, if you think about it. And I'll go into this a little bit more. This day deals with the beginning of eternity. And it isn't just for us, it's for every human being who chooses to be part of it. Everybody that ever lived, every human being, our stillborn baby, your husband or wife, your children, whoever it is has passed away, whether they were converted or not, this day pictures a time when what used to be human is transferred or transformed into something different, and the difference is that we will become spirit, which is far more real than humanity. Although it doesn't seem like that, it's an illusion that we are actually real. We are real. What makes us different from the rest of the physical creation is the fact that God has put a spirit in us. It's what makes us different. It's what makes us conscious. It's what makes us able to comprehend the Father and the Son and the world that he lives in, or that he's chosen to work within. So, as I said, this is not, you know, the deaths and the various things that happen to humanity is not the end of life. It's the beginning of a new life into eternity. Now, when I tell you, folks, when I first came to church and heard that God was saying to me, this young man, a long time ago now, I remember driving away. It was down in Guildford, and I drove away up the Guildford High Street, and I said to Viv, I really hadn't comprehended this. That the creator of the world and everything that we see is actually saying to me, Andrew, I, the Father, have chosen you, you little worm, in effect, to inherit eternity as my son. And you know, I still marvel at that. And it is just beyond everything that we could even hope for, isn't it? In life is hard sometimes. It deals us a few bad hands. But what is it that sustains us? It's the hope that God has put within us. So I'm just going to draw a few little analogies, and I won't be long. I've only been 10 minutes so far, just in case you're counting. Right. This day shows us what and how God will deal with us to enable his dream, not my dream or your dream. This is what the Father dreamt up. This is the Father's plan, that we, mere little human beings, are going to become his sons and daughters forever. He's going to actually change us to spirit, to power. I got up early this morning, and before the sun rose, and I finally saw the sun, and where we were, it was there on the horizon, and it was dull and dark, and well, it was light, but anyway, all of a sudden, this blazing, powering star, which we call the sun, emerged over the horizon. You know what he says, don't you, about us? That when we are born, literally born into his family of spirit beings, we will shine like the sun. Unbelievable. We can't even look at the sun, can we? That's, you and I are going to be like that. Why? And how come? And how come we deserve it? Do we deserve that? Do we deserve that sort of energy? Well, I don't. It's a gift. When he changes things, because after all, God is a spirit, and we know that, and his way of life is a spiritual way of life, yet he's chosen to work within physical realms. The whole universe will be changed at one time, from physical to something else which is more enduring. Now, we know that the universe will go on for many, many, many years if we understand it correctly. But is that all there is? It says elsewhere that we can't really imagine what God is actually planning to do. And you think, come on, I've seen Star Trek. You know, I can imagine things. But he says, you can't imagine what I have got in store for you. And I think he's probably right. Don't know about you. We will be transformed from dust, or from little tiny atoms that you can't see, to powerful spirit beings. This is what this day really is about. It's not just our resurrection. It's the resurrection of every man and woman who wants to be part of it. It describes also, in Revelation, the home that we will live in, the New Jerusalem, this sparkling spiritual city, really, it's got to be. Because if it was a physical thing that it's talking about in Revelation, the planet would be wobbling like, you know, the front wheels of my car. It's got to be something more than physical, and we know that it is. This is going to be where we want to live. I live up the river, up the coast on a river, and it's beautiful. And I can relate to that because it's a physical place. I'm a physical person. It suits me physically. It's very comfy and all the rest of it. But really, that is only a temporary home. It's like a tabernacle that I'm dwelling in, like my body is a tabernacle. But God's got something far greater for us to dwell in, and that is spiritual Jerusalem. And we will be part of it. We will be. What God is doing with us and with our lives, he's teaching us certain things. One of the most important things is, what is the family of God like? Why? How can we comprehend what it might be like? Because we're called to be sons and daughters. Well, if you've got sons or you've got daughters, you know what it's like to be a parent. If you're normal and you're balanced and all the rest of it, you know how deep your love is for your children. It doesn't matter how old they are. you always love them. And that's part of what we will share spiritually, not just physically, not just now, but for forever and eternity. So when I get on my knees and talk to my Father, well, I had a lovely dad, actually, a physical dad. He was a very gentle, kind man. It scared the living daylights out of me. Sometimes, if I'd done something wrong, and I won't tell you what I did, but I did do a few things. And when Dad was angry, he frightened the life out of me. He would chase me. And Mum would say, "Charles, no, don't, Charles." And I thought, "Go on, Mum." She was good too, although she clobbered me actually more than my dad did. I won't go into details, I've only got a few minutes. We will receive power and energy. Now, I'm getting on a bit. I'm, 35-ish, and I'm beginning to find the stairs a bit heavy sometimes and things. And I do get tired. I had a nap this morning. I didn't tell you that. I was. Then, in the future, we will be full of energy forever. And we can work. I mean, when Christ said, "I work and my Father works," what does that mean for us? We will work. Now, you and I, we may have hobbies, we may have jobs that we do that we enjoy, and we do get an enjoyment and a sense of satisfaction. God does the same thing. What are we going to do when all of a sudden we are spiritual beings with this energy busting out of us? We aren't going to be plucking harps, looking up to the face of this being in heaven forever. Can you imagine how boring that would be? He's going to create a new universe with new creatures, his spirit sons and daughters, and we are them. Not yet, it doesn't appear yet, but that's what's on the horizon for us. This is part of what this feast day pictures. It's a different thing, as I said, from the Feast of Tabernacles. The term supernatural can begin to worry some people. 4 minutes to go. And I've watched a few things, and I don't like supernatural sort of films or scary new movies, all that sort of thing. But God is supernatural. He's not just natural. He's not just a physical, being. He is supernatural. We are partially already, aren't we, after all? But we're locked into physical life with its limitations. But we will be supernatural, living forever. Does that sort of interest you? Is that something you want? Do you want to live forever? There's a song, I think, by Alphaville, "Do You Want to Live Forever?" which I continually play because my kids get fed up with that, but I like it, and Alphaville's pretty good. So we're going to be supernatural beings. That's incredible. Andrew Patey was born in London in the Blitz in 1942, this little tot, and he grew up as a teddy boy. He likes rock and roll. I'm going to be a supernatural being. My wife already thinks I'm pretty good. There we are. So, what I'm saying is, this day, although it is very, very exciting, has got this wonderful picture attached to it that we are part of now. Not yet, but we will. So, I'd like to just wrap this up by saying this. We are going out tonight or tomorrow, whenever it is, we're leaving this feast site where we've experienced joy. We've experienced, apart from a few things which I could tell you, where things crashed a bit, but I won't mention those, but that's part of life. There's some funny people, aren't there? But we're going out into the world. We're going to face the trials, and some people of us here are going to be going back to really difficult situations. There are hard things they're going to suffer. And who knows what we are personally going to suffer. But we are going to go out into a world which is really not God's at the moment, and we do have enemies. I want to just encourage you to look up the stars, see what God has created out there, read your Bibles, get close to God. Get close to God. I mentioned that on the first night, and I will mention it again. It's time, folks. It's time to change. It's time to draw close to God. And he said, if you have got cares, cast them on me. And we should do that. Take them to him. I know we do that. We need to do that a lot more. Why? Because he cares for you.